invited Susan, my beautiful wife, because she was there for more than half of the journey. But I wanted to, in this story time, I know I try to keep things light for story time.
Why'd you look over there when you said light?
There's an angel over there.
Is it a light angel?
I like to keep things light.
Squirrel!
For story time, but I thought I might for story time this one maybe keep things a little bit more real, if I could, a little bit heavier subject. I'd like to talk to you about the cost of veterinary school, the cost of my veterinary education. Now, sitting next to me is
someone who's glad they didn't go to vet school.
A summa magna cum laude. How do you say that?
Sure, just throw all those words in there.
Miss Susan has an English degree from Auburn University, a teaching degree from Auburn University with a music degree from Auburn University, and then a master's in English from Auburn University. Did I get all that right?
I have a secondary English education and K through 12 vocal music education degrees, master in, let's see, my bachelor's was all of those, and my master's was English with minor in music.
So even though I went to school for 9 years, she went to school for 7.
But I went through summers, so probably
And she
about the same.
she did go through summers, but I went through 4 summers. So I started off my career at the University of Kentucky. And when I got into the University of Kentucky, I started out pre-veterinary. Now I know that this was a different world that I grew up in, because this was all the way back in 1988, which for some of you
so old.
Seems like a lifetime ago, and it was.
I was still in high school.
But for some, like me, it seems like yesterday. But when I went to the University of Kentucky for the very first time as a freshman and got in, I didn't really have a mentor. My mom and father did not go to college, and now my mom did go to college later on in life and got a nursing degree, but it was more in a community college. So to go to a major university was something new for all of us. It was an adventure. And when we went there for orientation, I had to declare a major, so I declared animal science as my major with a pre-vet track. And so we were in there with this advisor who was just a general advisor to help with freshmen incoming. And I got signed up for chemistry, English, calculus, writing.
Don't look at me, I wasn't there.
think that was the year I took Tribal Peoples of the Modern World. Yes, those were my first semester freshman classes at the University of Kentucky. Needless to say, I almost quit.
Did you have chemistry? Did you say chemistry?
I had chemistry 1, yeah, and calculus 1, and I knew nobody. I mean, when I went into that dorm room, there was nobody that I knew. A few people from my high school of 66 ended up coming to the University of Kentucky, and I would see them on occasion, but not very often. But that first year, I stayed in the dorm, and I remember this very specifically, and I can tell you why I remember it. The cost of the dorm room was about $2,200 per semester, and that was with a meal card, and my classes were about $895. To me, that was so expensive. And I know you're thinking right now, that ain't nothing compared to college, and trust me, I know. I've got one who's still in the master's program right now, and 3 more that's getting ready to start college. So what happened was as I went through the University of Kentucky and I got more into agriculture and my grades improved and I worked really hard, I earned a lot of scholarships to help me with tuition. But I also worked in a packing plant for the university, and I also cut tobacco, and I also worked on a pig farm. And all three of those jobs for agriculture paid pretty darn well. So when I wasn't in school, I was working. And with my mom and dad's help, the scholarships that are earned, and all of the jobs, when I got into veterinary school, I had paid for my entire undergraduate degree. So when I went to veterinary school, I was debt-free.
That's the way to do it.
I have no idea. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I have no idea what my undergraduate degree cost. I really don't. I'm going to guess that it was probably $35,000 to $40,000 total. Do you have any idea what your undergraduate degree cost?
Mm-mm.
So I don't know. Those were expenses, but I was
tutoring, but I wasn't really.
Yeah. I was very young. I mean, I was really young. I had no idea. I knew how to balance a checkbook, but big money was beyond me. It was just something, a bill come in, and I would work and I would pay it off. To keep track of all of that expense, I don't have any idea. But by the time I got to veterinary school in 1992, my money skills and the reality of how expensive veterinary school slapped me pretty hard. So I had to, of course, I couldn't work full time and do what I did in undergraduate for veterinary school, because veterinary school itself is a full-time job plus overtime. I mean, nobody goes through veterinary school and says it was a breeze. It's just work. It's hard. And hats off to anybody who gets in and then makes it all the way through. And for me, it was especially hard. And so this is when Susan entered my life, because I met her the second half of my freshman year, and then we got married my sophomore year when we were in veterinary school. And so
You were in veterinary school. I was
in veterinary school. Yeah. So here we were. We were living in a 12 by 48 New Moon 1968 mobile home.
I hated that thing.
It was a dump. It was. We loved it.
It
We
wasn't so
loved
much
it.
a dump as it was a shoebox.
It was a shoe. It was little. It was so small.
We had to climb over the books to get to the bathroom.
It was a bachelor pad. We got married, and I moved her into that. And
That's what bunk beds are for.
We were happy
Store
where we
stuff
are.
over your head.
We were happy. It was, and we had great friends, and we had the entire Auburn University, which is just the greatest campus on the planet. And they had activities all the time, free movies, places to eat, things you could do. They were always about student activities, and I was involved in Alpha Psi, the fraternity, and so they were always doing stuff. So we were busy, and we were a young couple. We were living there in that new mobile home, and I paid $3,800 for that mobile home. Our lot rent was $110 a month, and our electric, water, and all of those trash bills and stuff, they were somewhere in the neighborhoods of $65 to $75 a month. So we were spending about $200 a month on rent because I already bought the trailer. I know that my first year's tuition at Auburn University for that one quarter was about $6,000. Plus I had to buy a $2,000 microscope. I had a whole lot of fees that I had to pay for lab coats. They had a dress code at Auburn, and I had no ties. I had no dress shirts. I had no dress pants. So I had to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe so that I could meet the dress code when I got to Auburn University and got in there. And then I had to eat. And you'd be surprised at how fast you run out of money. Because I was borrowing $8,000 a quarter, and that was all that I was borrowing that first 2 years. And then Susan and I got married, and even though her education through scholarships and through her dad having saved up and paid for most of her college, our expenses were just all the time, they were just building and growing. And Auburn University raised my tuition for going to veterinary school every single year that I was there. So by the time that I left veterinary school, I had accumulated a debt of $115,000. Give or take a few pennies, my debt was 150. Well, it's her debt too. It's we accumulated about $115,000 to get through veterinary school, and I'm thankful for that because it is so much more expensive now to go to the veterinary school than it was when I went. I mean, it's doubled.
Who knows?
One of my
not having the undergrad debt on top of that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
huge blessing.
Great blessing. However, we paid $780 a month, especially on that health professions loan, and I was able to combine them together into one low interest, and it was only like 1%, which again is a great blessing. But with that loan, it was $780 plus change for 10 years. And I didn't have the money to pay any extra because when you're young and you're just getting started, I mean, everything is just so hard and expensive. And my first job that I had, it did not pay well, if it ever paid me at all. And that was really tough as well. And Susan, she couldn't find a full-time job where we'd moved to Arkansas. It just takes time to get into that teaching stuff. So basically she had part-time jobs, which earned enough money to keep our boy Alan in daycare, and that was about it, and buy a little extra food. So it was tough, paying that $780 a month for 10 years. And I would encourage any veterinary student out there, and I don't care what profession you're in, you really need to have a plan for college. You need to start saving, and you need to try to leave whatever profession it is. When you go to college, you need to try to leave with as little debt as possible. And you really, I know it's easy when you're young to not think about these things, but it is so important to not carry that debt on into your life. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. So
There's a whole house we could not.
Whole house, absolutely. I mean, $780 goes a long ways. And that was one of the biggest raises financially, personally, I ever got, is when we paid that student loan off. I was like, gosh, now I have $780 more a month than I didn't have before.
Now we can buy a car and owe it all over again.
I think we didn't we?
Pretty
Bought
sure.
a minivan.
Pretty sure we went from one car to two cars.
Is that right? So fast forward, okay? Fast forward. I said, I'm not going to send you to college to find out who you are and waste all that money. You need to find out who you are first, and then if college fits into who you want to be, then we'll go to college with a plan. And we'll go to college and we'll pay for it. We'll go to college and we'll make that degree pay for itself. It means something when we're done. But we're not going to go to college and spend $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000, and then you decide that's not what I want to do. I want to do something else. I said
or
that's
decide that you're going to go into something that you didn't need a degree to do at all, and you could have
Exactly.
been working for those 4 years and making your living instead of, and by the end of that 4 years, you could have been, owner of your own company instead of still in debt from college.
there's a lot of different paths,
Yeah.
and so now we have a daughter who's graduating high school, and I've given her the same speech, almost the exact same words. I sat her down and I said, "What are your plans?" And she says, "I really don't know what I want to do yet." I was like, "You're not going to go to college to discover who you are. You can go to college when you find out what you want to do and you have a plan and a goal, and so let's explore what that is, and maybe you need to work for a year or two, or maybe you need to just take some community college courses to get some of your minor stuff like English and math out of the way, and then you can go to full-time college, or you can really commit big time after you figure out who you are. But we're not going to just go to college for the sake of going to college. That's not how it works.
For me, I had 2 career paths, the first one being veterinary medicine, and me knowing me, I had a backup, and I said, I'm going to try for the hard one, and if I don't like it, and I just decide that's not what I want to do, I'm going to go with my backup. And so when I went from my harder choice to my backup, I ended up with a lot of extra credit hours to my favor, because vet school, the track that you're on is an accelerated program. So you like skip the first quarter of this math class because it doesn't help you at all. You have to start with this one. So then when you switch tracks, then you end up with the credit hours for the class you skipped. And so I ended up helping myself by starting out on a more aggressive plan and then backing down. But that doesn't work for everybody. If you go in and you realize this isn't hard enough for me, it's not the career that I want to go to, you're going to end up spending a lot more time catching up. So you really have to think about what you're going to do and what your backup plan is if you get in there and you hate it. Because I took chemistry in high school and I loved it, and I took chemistry in college and I said there's no possible way that I'm going to take 9 quarters of chemistry, because you have to, at least at Auburn being on the quarter system, I don't know how it panned out for.
Well, Auburn was on the quarter system then. UK was on the semester system, but Auburn, through peer pressure across the nation, switched over to the semester system. And that, I left the year before they did that, and I'm so glad I was not a part of that switching over, because I hear through the rumor mill that was a blazing nightmare.
The switching or the end product?
The switching. The end product is great, but the switching was a nightmare.
I liked the quarters because I could get 4 classes in a year if I did summer quarter.
I thought the quarter system was great. I made Auburn kind of unique in some ways, but once I got down there and saw the quarter system, I really enjoyed it. I thought, man, this is the way to go. I don't know why we do it with the semester system. I mean, but it's a thing of the past now. It doesn't matter. My opinion, of course, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
They never have, and they never will.
Do you care?
I think that it's very important. I know that when you're going into veterinary medicine or whatever other career that you choose, I know that it is very important for you to not think about money and just concentrate on books. And it would be really nice in a perfect world if that's how it worked. But it doesn't. You can ignore the money side, you can ignore the expense, you can ignore all that's going on there, and there are privileged people who get to do that. But for most people, they can't. Do not ignore the financial cost. Do not allow yourself to take on any more debt than you can possibly handle. Some of these poor kids are coming out of veterinary school, coming out of medical school, which is, a whole different genre, dental school, things of that nature. And yeah, some of those professions pay significantly higher than veterinary medicine, but still are coming out with $250,000 debt. And you can't come out of veterinary school with a $250,000, $300,000 worth of debt and make $90,000 to $110,000 a year and expect to live, because your payment on that $300,000 bill every month is going to be between $3,200 and $3,700 every single month for 10 years. Unless you hit the lottery or something like that. I mean, how are you going to live? How are you going to buy a house? How are you going to raise a family? How are you going to I mean, you've indentured yourself for 10 years, and you know, there's just a lot that goes into that debt load, and I know it's a burden, but it's not something that you can't overcome if you will plan and you will seek out and you will dig and you will work hard. There are ways to, meander through all of that forest and get to the goal with a burden that you can carry. Okay? So maybe you don't need to live in a condo at Auburn. Maybe you need to live in a 48 by 12 New Moon mobile home matchbox.
Yeah.
With a window unit, air conditioning, and fire ants in your yard.
And the laundry in the bathroom.
And the laundry in the bathroom, yeah. And our dryer was in a shed in the backyard.
That's right.
We didn't
It didn't even fit in the house.
The dryer didn't fit in the house. It was wired up in a shed.
Oh, wet laundry all the way down to the shed.
Hurricane Opal come through while we were down there. It didn't tear our shed down. It just tipped it.
Oh,
And so I went out there and I tipped it back up. And a week later, I saw smoke coming out of the back of it, and I ran down there, and the shed and the dryer were on fire. And I put it out really quick, cleaned out the lint thing because it had all fallen when it tipped over. And so Susan, I was like, oh well, let's turn it on and see if it burns it down again. And it didn't. We just kept on using it.
Wasn't in the trailer. At least it didn't tip the trailer over.
I'm just glad I was home that day that the dryer caught on fire.
Man, the trailer park memes that would be going around.
It was crazy.
If memes had been a thing back then. What did we call memes? Because they weren't
Cartoons?
memes. I don't know.
We didn't have handheld computers and
No.
Facebook back in those days. But I don't think memes
But
was a
everybody,
thing.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But there was the essence of don't live in a trailer park because
Bullying?
it was probably more like
Stereotypes?
political, cartoonish kind of thing. But that's not how. I mean, we didn't get the newspaper and sit there and read political cartoons. But there was always somebody talking about how there's a hurricane coming, everybody leaves the trailer park. And it was true, because those hurricanes, they love to go straight through trailer parks every time.
Yeah, he did. I don't know what it is. Tornado magnets.
Yes.
We
If there's
would
one-
never discourage anybody from going to veterinary school. We need you in veterinary medicine.
Please,
Veterinary
come
medicine
work for
needs
us.
your talents, they need your time, they need your skills, they need your brain, they need you to further advance the welfare of animals as well as humankind.
You need a relief
The
vet.
world, the world needs you to be a veterinarian or a lawyer or a farmer or a taxi driver. I mean, whatever your profession, whatever you are called to be, the world needs you. And so don't be discouraged to not do it because of the cost. Just do it smart. Plan. Make an action goal. Rice and beans, as Dave Ramsey would say, and you'll get through it. But just don't get in the debt trap. Don't do that. And I guess that's all I got.